Today, we're really excited to talk about some stories that we've been hearing about people who are working from home now during this pandemic with the COVID-19 pandemic, and people are getting more creative, maybe innovative, coming up with new ideas while they're at home, but they're also working from home. And so this is sort of drawing attention to that boundary between work life and home life when you're working from home. And if you invent something, who owns it, right? So, Tom, you had a couple stories that you wanted to share related to this question, and I thought they were really interesting. So
these are the unintended consequences of COVID. Well, I shouldn't say unintended consequences of COVID-19, because that gives the impression that COVID-19 is thinking about, why it's doing this, right? But if COVID-19 were a person, I'd say these are unintended consequences of COVID-19, which are IP issues that are coming up. And we're going to probably talk about a few IP issues today coming up because of COVID-19. So what's happening? People are staying at home, right? We're all required to stay in our homes now, which means people are working at home, which means a few things are happening. One is no commutes, which means people have more time. Number two, the work-home boundary is being created. It's being fuzzy. It's more fuzzy now, right? I was going to say it's being fuzzyized, but it's becoming more fuzzy, right?
It's being fun.
Yeah. So, and people have more time, and now they're home in the evenings. They can't go out doing stuff, so they're getting more creative. So I've had, in the last week, 3 people come to me, not face-to-face, we have to maintain our social distancing. So they're coming to me on Zoom meetings with questions about IP or potential IP from stuff they've created. And I'll give you a few examples without giving away their ideas. One friend of mine came to me with a new soap dish idea, right? So his big issue is his soap, because everyone's got soap now, right? Everybody's got bars of soap near all their sinks. So he has never had soap in a bar in his life, he said, next to a sink. And what does he discover? He discovers that since he's putting it in a soap dish, there's water on the bottom, and the bottom of the soap is getting really soft. His issue with this is not that it's gross when you pick it up, which, by the way, it is. His issue is that he only has so much soap, and he and his family are washing their hands like 10 times a day, because as we know, COVID could get on your hands, but it doesn't get in you until you scratch your face or rub your eyes or something. So wash your hands 10 or 12 times a day. So he doesn't want to burn through all of his soap. So he's afraid he'll waste his soap too quickly if the water's eating away at it, right? So he invents, in the last few weeks, a new type of soap dish. And he actually shows me a prototype. And it's pretty cool. So I'm actually using one of his soap dishes now at my house. But he wants me to write a patent application for him. But he has a question. After, is it potentially patentable, which I don't know because I didn't do a prior art search yet. But the question is, who owns it, right? Because there's the boundary, of course, between work and your home life is fuzzy now. And also, he never had time to create stuff before, so he never created anything. And he's wondering who owns it. And I'll give you another example. A friend of mine calls me because even though he's an IP guy, he's not a copyright IP guy. And he's writing a book on IP. And he works for a company, and he's in their IP department. And he bounces this idea off me, and that is, who do you think owns this book that I'm going to be writing on a topic in IP? Because I'm in the IP department of a company.
Right.
So, and then the third guy comes to me, he's developing a new app. Same question, right? I'm home, I have more time, I'm not commuting for an hour each way anymore. The boundary's fuzzy. Who owns this stuff? So ultimately, I thought about a story in my own life. Back in 2000, I got funding for a company called IP.com. And after lengthy discussions with our venture partners, we had a document to sign, and all the potential shareholders, there was going to be employee stock options, had to sign this. And one of my coworkers came to me and said, look, this doesn't seem fair. It says that the company owns all IP generated during my employment. And I said, yeah, of course. I mean, we're paying you. Why wouldn't we own it? And he said, well, what if it's unrelated? I'm a musician and I'm always creating stuff. You know, I'm writing songs, I'm playing music, and I'm also inventing musical instrument things. And we don't have anything to do with that, which we didn't. What about that? So we had a lengthy discussion with our VC about it, and we agreed, yeah, this should be owned by the company. And since then, I've read a lot of employment agreements, and they mostly all say if it's related to the business of the company. So my first question, as I always ask people when they come to me with IP ownership issues, is show me the documents, because the documents typically define the relationship or who owns the IP in the relationship. So in these cases, when I said, show me the documents, none of them had the documents, of course, right? Because who keeps those documents?
Right.
But they're all going to check with their HR department and get copies of their employment agreements that they signed, and then they're going to send them to me. And in all likelihood, it will define who owns the soap dish, who owns the book, and who owns the app that these three people developed. And I'm guessing that it will fall in favor of each of these innovators or creators, because again, most of these agreements typically say that the company owns it if it's related to the business of the company.
Interesting. Now, what if it doesn't specify? What if it's not specific enough?
Well, let's say one thing is it doesn't specify at all, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say it doesn't say anything. It's silent on the issue of IP ownership. Then there's an issue for the company, and it's much more, it's much broader than a soap dish, a book, and a mobile app. And it could be that, and I forget which way it goes. I know that contractors, the rights automatically fall in favor of the contractor unless there's an agreement to the contrary. And I can't remember who owns it in the employment situation, absent an agreement, but there's a law on that. So it'll go one way or the other if it's silent. But almost every agreement these days has information on who owns the IP. And in all likelihood, if it's just generally we own the IP, you'd still have a good case for, well, a soap dish has nothing to do with what we do, so I still own this.
Right.
But it would be more fuzzy then. I mean, if the company wanted to be really tough about it, and the agreement generally says we own all the IP that you create during your employment, they could, give you a hard time. But in all likelihood, you'd be okay in all three of those cases.
Right. Unless, of course, that someone was inventing something that was related to the business.
Yeah, and you're going to suddenly have a soap dish and you're in the soap dish business.
Right.
Yeah, then you are going to have a problem. Or if somebody was at home creating training videos, and our training company would have a big problem with that. And our law firm might have to deal with that issue, right?
You could deliver such a threat with a smile.
Right.
No, I have no ambitions of creating any training videos. If I did, it would be like how to potty train your dog.
By the way, I love your shirt, Ray. Can you show us the logo?
Now, here's a funny thing, though. Logo. But look at this. That's bleach from cleaning all the surfaces in my house.
Oh, and you're using your paranoid thing as the rag, right?
I got bleach in a spray bottle. Like door handles, light switches. Once every few days, or if I go out.
Colson Law Group hoodies.
Yeah.
But this is another unintended consequence of the COVID-19. Again, if the COVID-19 had any intentions. Right. But is ruining a perfectly good Colson Law Group hoodie.
Yeah.